All right, guys, we've got a 12-team Superflex PPR 1.75 for the tight end start 10. Scott, you going Sam Darnold in a 25 first, let's call it mid, or Trevor Lawrence in a 25 second? Go ahead, man.
Well, first, it's wild that we're even in this discussion with Sam Darnold being one of the key pieces. But, Sam Darnold through a couple games. He is a QB1 technically, QB10 overall through 2 games. Trevor Lawrence, as Shane has said for years, Trevor Lawrence is just a guy that has a name that people thought was going to be better, and he kind of is exactly what he's always been. He's probably a mid-tier QB2. Maybe he could flirt with a low-end QB1 if he gets back to like what his peak could be. But it's more Trevor Lawrence, the asset. What can I do with Trevor Lawrence, the asset, which is currently QB 15 on Keep Trade Cut? He's been passed by Brock Purdy. He's been passed by Dak Prescott. He's right ahead of guys like Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff. So I think it comes down to what else can I do with TLaw? Can I get the old TLaw price here and go back to somebody and say, okay, I can collect the TLaw share and the second and then go do better than Sam Darnold in a first? But I think with how a lot of people are viewing the quarterback landscape right now, if they have at least one of their QBs being from this kind of retread, Darnold, Baker, Geno Smith, Derek Carr, the names. They're not excited to move off of those guys if they have to pay a premium when it comes to disrupting the rest of their lineup. And this is a start 10. So if I'm sitting here saying I need another piece that is going to start for me, you're immediately going to go, man, it's hard for me to give up a producer that is in my lineup for a quarterback upgrade when I'm trading away the guy who is outscoring the guy I'm getting by a couple points per game already. It just leads into, and I'm taking the 25 first and Sam Darnold because it leads into the weekly dynasty game now that everybody's playing. Sam Darnold could be a pumpkin in 6 months, and you're going, he's not a starter anymore. But as long as you're like, I can get through the season with him, and I'm getting a first, which I could probably turn around and rebuy the next year's Sam Darnold, plus with that same first if I didn't want to use it, just feels like today's dynasty game, give me the stuff I can move, and I don't think I can move Trevor Lawrence right now for anything more than this.
Shane, again, it's the 12-team Superflex, 1.75 for the tight end, start 10. You going Sam Darnold in a mid-25 first or T-Law in a 25 second?
This is really tough. Yeah, it's smash accept. I would hit accept so fast that the person would send me a message like, wait, was that too easy? Like, should I have asked for more? And I would go, yes, you should have asked for more, because Trevor Lawrence is a mid-tier QB2. He might flirt with QB 13, QB 12, but nothing that we've seen from him shows that he's ever going to be elite. Sam Darnold is not going to be elite. Sam Darnold, he's going to turn back into a pumpkin, because that's what Sam Darnold does. Sam Darnold, if you remember a few years ago in Carolina, and he did it in a different way, was a QB1 through the first 3 or 4 weeks. I think he was rushing for 4 touchdowns a game, probably over exaggerating there, but roughly. So he's definitely going to turn into a pumpkin. The only thing that matters to me about him is I can get a couple weeks out of him. Or even better yet, can I take that package, add a second to it, and go get an actual QB1, a real QB1, not a fake QB1 like Trevor Lawrence. Really, the only thing Trevor Lawrence has over any other QB1 is wonderful hair. Wonderful, wonderful hair. It's going to start falling out if he continues to be this poor at football, because he's going to get stressed out and those beautiful locks are going to fall out. So I can be honest with you. I would have been taking a first for Lawrence without Sam Darnold 5 months ago, 6 months ago. What's changed? Trevor Lawrence has gone out there and shown us he's exactly who we thought he is. He's a mid-tier QB2, maybe a high-end QB2, excuse me. He's a high-end QB2. What's that work?
So, Scott, this is an interesting tier because you have the Bakers, the Genos, the Goffs, the Cousins. There's a whole cluster of them here. Oftentimes there are QB3s, and we seem to be excited about them being our QB3s, but how do we navigate this QB2 water? When we're constructing our rosters, are you okay with some of those guys I mentioned being your QB2, or how are you constructing around this tier?
So I think there's a couple factors. One, clearly, if you look at the current quarterback production, you have guys like Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Anthony Richardson. That's your QB 3 through 8 right now. It's not a shock that all of those guys can get yards on the ground. They're given opportunities to score touchdowns on the ground. And some of them can actually throw enough to where they're dangerous in both capacities, where you're like, it makes sense that they're QB1s. But then when you just start looking at the way the game is going, yardage and passing scoring is down the first couple weeks. Whether that continues or not, I think you've seen the pocket passers, the TLaws, the Burrows, the Herberts, the Goffs, all those guys have kind of come back to the pack to where they're very close to some of these names we're talking about. So here's what I look at. There's two things. One, you have to look at the offense. Like Geno Smith Sam Darnold, the thing about those guys is they're in offenses that are pass heavy. They're pass first. Their offenses are designed to throw, and those guys are producing at the same time. Now, is it their talent or is it the systems that they're in? So you have to weigh that. Like, what is the longevity of Sam Darnold being in Minnesota? It's probably not past this year. Geno Smith, not guaranteed to be in Seattle past this year. But if they are, those are the situations where I go, you know what? This is probably something that can continue. What remains to be seen, I think, with Baker Mayfield, they're 13th in pass rate. And I'm talking like in situations where nobody knows what you're not behind 4 touchdowns. Of course, you're going to pass. Your neutral pass rate. I always look at that to kind of determine what the goal of the offense is. The curious one's Derek Carr. They're 31st in neutral pass rate. He's not going to throw or score 4 touchdowns a game. He's not going to hit a 70-yard touchdown in every game. He's not going to have a 40-yard yak touchdown in every game. So he's the one I'm actually the most questionable on. But his offense, like if you just know they're going to be a top 8 offense, you're like, okay, give me the quarterback. It'll produce points. So I look at these to figure out what offensive situations do I want to be in. Then you have to look at my league and how much credit I'm getting for the longevity. We just talked about Trevor Lawrence. You know what Trevor Lawrence has, Shane? Longevity. He's going to start for the Jaguars this regime, the next regime. When the next regime gets fired, it'll still be Trevor Lawrence. So you're not questioning his job security. But if you then go to your league and I say, Clay, are you interested in Trevor Lawrence because he's going to start for the next 5 years? And you go, no, because he's QB 23. So I don't even care how long I'm going to get QB 20 or QB 18. So it comes down to how does your league value the longevity? And if the only reason a guy has value is because they have longevity but not production, I think in today's dynasty game, you just lean into the guys that are producing now and figure it out later, especially if you're getting a first, like that first deal that we did.
Shane, how do you acquire QBs in this tier? Because people aren't going to sell Derek Carr for just a single second. At the same time, said people know they're likely not going to get a first for Derek Carr, but how are you acquiring and navigating the trade market?
All right. Well, I absolutely cannot stomach, fathom, or condone giving a 25 first for any of these jabronis. I could, depending on how many starters, and if I need a certain amount of starters, I could be talked into, okay, well, what else can I get with Derek Carr to make me feel less like I'm just giving up a first for Derek Carr, right? Now, it's not exactly Jerry Jeudy, but if you gave me a sexier name that did exactly what Jerry Judy's done so far this year, I'd probably do that. So that's how I would go about doing it, because I'm not going to give a first for them. I'm just not. Derek Carr has been really, really fun this year. I don't think the Saints are the best offense in the last 30 years, which is basically what they're on pace for. The regression monster is going to kick Derek Carr right in the nuts. You can't be a QB1 throwing 20 times a game when you don't run. It's just not going to happen. Rashid Shaheed is not going to continue with a 25 yards per reception. Not going to happen. So that in the back of my head is why I cannot give up a first for Derek Carr. Can I give you Trevor Lawrence for Derek Carr and a second? How about that? Can I do that? I'm just getting rid of Trevor Lawrence off every roster. The problem is I don't have him on any of them. So whatever, who's the equivalent of Trevor Lawrence that other people actually roster?
I think there's others. If you want to go up to Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy is another one that you go, okay, well, why Brock Purdy over any of these guys, given San Francisco is right there at the very bottom in terms of, if you look at San Francisco's offense, you know what they don't want to do? Pass. And so, like, what is the path for Brock Purdy to be a top 15 QB, other than he probably has a good system and probably some longevity coming? He's also in the mix. I mean, Jared Goff, solid, but I don't think he's any different than any of these others. But Jared Goff, after last year, got propped up as, okay, Jared Goff is more of a quote unquote like safe option versus Geno Smith or Derek Carr, because those guys are going to get benched. And what we're talking about, I think the way to acquire them is to lean into the dynasty value of TLaws, Purdy, Goff, Herbert, Burrow, even CJ Stroud. Like, CJ Stroud is a great NFL quarterback. Look at his fantasy numbers, though. It's not like he's blowing away the field. He's at the higher end of that pocket passing group, but so was Herbert, so was Burrow. Those guys, when they were on rookie contracts and they had the best teams around them that they had ever had, they were up there. And then as things start to fall, they don't run and they fall back a little bit. So I think it's leaning into that fake dynasty value of those guys and being like, hey, maybe I'll live dangerously in this spot, Shane. I don't need Burrow and Stroud. I can go with Stroud and Baker and you tack on a first, and I'll play with that and see what I can get done.